Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So today I wanted to do a psychoanalysis of the Queen of Kings. Her name is Rose Miller. So I'm going to make this a part of the Creepy Article series. This is where we kind of lurk around the internet and we kind of gossip and talk our shit about what's going on. We give our opinions. So get your tea, get your coffee, get your wine, your lattes, get your Starbucks, because I want to do a deep dive into this. So when I first saw this story about Rose and Brett. I think his name's Brett. For those of you who don't know, this is a kind of like one of those interracial couples. You know how like the swirling and divestment movement is really big. So I guess this woman was touting this man over on TikTok, kind of making him look as if he's a provider and protector. And it turns out she was like paying for everything. She recently went on live talking about how she actually purchased the house or like got the mortgage in her name. And I believe that she actually does have the house in her name and that she paid for it because she actually let it slip on the Tasha K interview that I watched. Because when she was speaking about it, she said, "Oh, when I bought my house," she didn't say when me and my husband bought our house. And plus, even if it's both of them buying the house, that still means it's a 50-50 relationship. First of all, that goes along with my decentering men talking points. I talk about this all the time on this channel. Men are not natural protectors and providers. I say this all the time. So I don't care if your husband is black. I don't care if he's white. I don't care if he's purple or green or blue. They're not natural protectors and providers. Okay. And not to mention the fact that statistically, around 80% of men make less than $100,000 per year. And with these swirlers and stuff, like I've seen Chrissy and other unambiguous black women talking about how exoticals are jealous because they're leveling up and getting these white men. Well, statistically, there's an 80% chance that your white man makes less than 100K per year. So whatever man you're marrying, you're not rich. And even if you are rich, Rose, I believe she has what, one, two, three kids. So $100,000 per year is what in maybe about a 35% tax bracket. I don't know. I used to be an accountant, but I'm not an accountant anymore. So that that tax bracket, he's only bringing home. Hold on. You know what? Let me look it up. Okay, so $100,000 per year, according to Google, your biweekly salary is $3,800. Okay, so it's 3846. So his biweekly salary is 3846. I believe that when they were arguing, she mentioned him having kids. So he's most likely paying child support. Child support can take up to about 25% of your salary. And let's pretend that he pays child support or that he's supporting their children or her children. So 3846 biweekly salary. And also, I believe that she said that they lived in Hawaii. Hawaii is a very expensive place to live in. So it's a biweekly salary of around 3846. Well, it's probably not, but let's just pretend that that's their household income. So they're poor. I mean, they're middle class at best. And so a lot of these unambiguous women who are talking about hypergamy, most of the black women that people are looking up to in these swirler relationships, they're not even hypergamous. They're in 50-50 marriages. The only difference is that the guy is white instead of black. And I know that a lot of people, they were giving commentary on Tasha K saying that she was kind of muling and caping for black men. So I didn't watch the entire thing because I'm not about to sit there and watch 2 hours. And I will say that I think she's married to a black guy. So, of course, she's going to be biased in favor of black men. But my thing is, no man is going to save you. And so, for the pretty girls watching this, let this be a cautionary tale. Let this Rose story be a cautionary tale that a lot of unambiguous women who brag about being married or dating a white guy, most of the time, statistically, that the majority of men are poor. There are more poor people in this world than rich people. There are more men who make less than 100K versus men who make over 100K. And so, even if her man did make 100K, she has multiple children. So, 100K is not shit to raise multiple children in Hawaii. Also, during the interview, she talked about how when she was like 8 months pregnant or something, she said that her husband, he was not working for 4 months. That has got to be some of the dustiest behavior I've ever heard of in my life. I don't care if you're a multimillionaire. If a man says that he loves you, which statistically I believe that a lot of men are not even capable of this high level of love that women are capable of. But let's be logical for a moment. If a man truly says he loves you and he's truly a provider, do you really think that he would sit around and watch his pregnant wife suffer financially and not work? And she also said that her white husband, that he had everything he needed to get his pilot's license. First of all, I have my own psychological theory about pilots. Pilots are notorious cheaters. So I'm actually glad she brought up pilots because I forgot to include them on my last video. Pilots cheat with flight attendants all the time. They hit on women in the airports and in the planes all the time. Pilots are notorious cheaters, so that's a red flag right there. If a man says he wants to be a pilot, any man who wants to do like a super high status, super travel-y job where he's like going all across the world and where, he's not going to have access to his phone and you can't have access to contact him, such as pilots, military, or anything where they're dealing with a lot of trauma, all of those jobs are red flags. Okay. So that's already a cautionary tale right there. But anyway, this black woman says that this guy had everything that he needed to get his pilot's license, but he basically sat on his ass for 4 months and did not do what he needed to do to get his pilot's license while she was pregnant and basically couldn't work. What man who truly loves you would treat you like that? Because that's already a sign that he thinks you're not shit. He thinks you're like worthless, basically. I mean, that's the type of behavior of a man who devalues you. So that's another red flag. But by the way, I also want to make the point that women who go on TikTok and create couples content like Nara Smith or Rose, these women are not trad wives. So I also want to emphasize that as well. A lot of women who promote hypergamy, oh, you don't want to work or do whatever. Remember, Shira Seven herself, she is working. She is, she has her own business. And so a lot of the women, and I'm not necessarily saying Shira Seven is like this, but a lot of the women like Rose or Nara Smith, do you really think that those women are just online producing TikToks for millions of people and that their husband is not accessing that money? Do you really think that ASAP Rocky is not accessing Rihanna's money, for example? So, if you're a woman with an entrepreneurial mindset, you are obviously going to be making money. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that most hypergamous marriages or marriages where you're a trad wife, if you're a woman who's a business owner, that marriage will eventually become 50-50 and then hypogamous. And we know that this is statistically true. Actually, I don't even have to use a statistic. I have anecdotal evidence to prove this. Have you ever met a guy or been with a guy who switches up after you get married? So, for example, there's a reason that they have a phrase called honeymoon period or the honeymoon phase. Yeah, so he starts off protecting and providing and whining and dining you in the beginning, but then once you get married and he sees that your business is popping, he sees that your YouTube is popping, your TikTok is popping, you're making a lot of money, he starts to pull back. This is the average behavior of men. Any woman who is not a femcel would know this. No shade towards femcels. I mean, I support celibacy, but I feel like there's a difference between a woman who is celibate by choice, like a single by choice woman, a decentered woman, versus a femcel. And another thing that I noticed about this interview with Rose is that Tasha K actually asked her, why did you prefer this white man? And Rose, she actually admitted that she's not a divestor. She admitted that she's not a real, like, divested person who prefers white men. She was just saying that she thinks that statistically, white men, they're better at raising their families and stuff like that. Rose actually admitted that she would have still dated a black man if he would have wined and dined her and treated her like how this white man did. So that's another thing that lines up with my talking point, that a lot of black women who swirl are only swirling because the black man or whatever, just never came along that was as high level as the white man. And by the way, this white man is not high level whatsoever. His job is a red flag. His behavior is a red flag. His personality is a red flag. But anyway, I'll get into that in a second. But she actually admitted that she simply had bad experiences with black men and that they were like dusty, basically. And she was basically saying that this white guy, he just treated her the best out of the other guys that she dated. And there was another interesting thing that Tasha K asked her. She actually asked her, how many black men have you dated? This woman said that she dated 3 black men. She'd only dated 3 black men. So I'm not trying to say I will never, you're never gonna see me on here defending black men. Like you're never gonna see me on here defending any type of men. But I do find it interesting though that she had only dated 3 black men, and then she was just like she kind of turned and ended up dating this one white guy who treated her the best. So it reminds me of women who are femcels. I'm not saying that she is one. I'm not going to accuse her of that. I don't know enough about her. I do believe that she has pretty privilege, but I think that she's obviously not walking in her pretty privilege, because no woman who knows her worth would allow a man to disrespect her like that while she's pregnant and not give a fuck about providing for her when she's about to have a baby. I just feel like that's dusty behavior. That's something that a dusty black man, a dusty black couple would behave like that. So I feel like Rose's self-esteem, even though she has pretty privilege and stuff, she doesn't realize it, or she doesn't know how to use it. And I'm going to get into Rose's personality in a minute, but I find it interesting that she had only dated 3 black men. So another thing this made me think about is how when I did a survey on this channel and I asked you guys what you guys thought of black guys, like do you date black guys? Do you not date black guys in particular? And I noticed that it was around 50-50. So around half of you guys were like, yeah, I don't mind. It's kind of a case by case thing. And then the other half of you guys were like, no, I don't date black guys at all. And so a lot of you guys kind of have the same mindset as me, where it's like men are men. Most men in general are going to have flaws. Exchange the word flaws with the word dust, okay? Exchange that word flaws with the word dusty. Most men are going to have dusty behaviors. Well, actually, all men are going to have dusty behaviors. So if you're going to get into any sort of relationship with any color of man, you're going to have to deal with dust. The question is not what race of men is the least dusty, because there's really no such thing. Every guy has flaws. Every guy has traumas. We all know that statistically, most men are not even emotionally stable, regardless of their color. I think that every culture has pros and cons. And so I will say my opinion on black guys in particular, my opinion is that black guys are the most violent. I do think that black guys, they kill the most black women and stuff like that. I do think that black men kill black men. But as far as my opinion on white guys is that they're rapists. They're the most common rapists and pedophiles, and they've got a lot of other horrible things. I actually have a 2-hour long video that I recorded. Unfortunately, it got deleted, so I'm going to have to re-record it. But you know how I did that video on what roster dating taught me about black men? I actually had one recorded that was even longer than that one. And that whole thing was about white men. And it was about my experiences being around white men, growing up around them, and kind of like the things that I experienced from them. So I think that you basically have to pick your poison no matter who you're dealing with. And so this is something that I understand. And I noticed that Tasha K, throughout the interview, a lot of people saw it as her mewling for black men, and that could have been a part of it. But I think that a part of it was also she was trying to bring out the internalized racism that Rose had potentially against herself or against her own culture. And I think that in Rose's case, she was trying to prioritize provision, like being protected and provided for, because she had kids. And so I don't know if Rose thought that this white man would somehow do a better job, but I didn't even have to watch the whole interview to know that that guy was a dusty. Any man who has everything he needs to get a pilot's license and he doesn't get a pilot's license, first of all, like I said, it's already a red flag that he wants to be a pilot to begin with. Yes, I am judgmental. Yes, I judge your profession. If you are a man who wants to be a pilot, I'm automatically looking at you like, okay, where's your education? With all due respect. Because, well, I'm just saying, because like, I kind of feel like if you're the type of woman who's hypergamous, right? You want a guy who's going to be a father that's present in the lives of your children. You want a guy who's going to do a good job protecting and providing. And by the way, I just looked up the average salary for a starting pilot. So by the way, he never made it to being a pilot. He didn't even get his pilot's license, but the starting salary for a pilot is 130K. Okay, so still, that's only around what, $4,000, $4,200 per paycheck? Is that supposed to take care of what, 3, 4, 5 kids? Only 142K? You're telling me you're a hypergamous, divested, swirling queen. This is somebody that a lot of unambiguous black women looked up to. And I know that Rose didn't say that that's what she is, but we all know that a lot of unambiguous black women, they almost have like this femcel fantasy about these interracial relationships. And meanwhile, this guy is making $4,200 per check, and he has I think, at least one child of his own, because I remember her in her rant against him talking about him being a deadbeat father toward his other child. And by the way, that's another red flag. So he wants to be a pilot. I believe pilots are notorious cheaters. And then he was a deadbeat father. And I'm supposed to look up to this? We're supposed to be jealous? First of all, this entire conversation is male centered, but this is a psychoanalysis video. So you're telling me we're supposed to be jealous of a woman who's with a white man who was literally a deadbeat father. I feel like the only difference between this white guy versus a black guy is like this white guy seems to have more ambition, or he talks the talk. Whereas a lot of black men, there are a lot of black men who just want to be rappers and NBA players and shit. So I can understand if she was more of a woman who didn't get a lot of dates or something, or maybe if she didn't have the flirtiness or personality or whatever to date a guy. But I just feel like this white guy was not even average. I would say average at best. Like, definitely a bottom shelf Brad. You know how they call it bottom shelf Brad? I feel like this guy was definitely that. And I also want to point out another interesting thing that Tasha K brought up. She said that she comes across black guys every day who could compete with her husband in terms of probably salary or whatever. And unfortunately, I have to agree, because if you're just shooting for a 130K guy who is a baby daddy, has a kid or whatever, and I don't know, he's 6'5", I feel like there are a lot of black guys who make 100K. And I know that a lot of women don't believe that, but I kind of feel like, okay, what kind of community are you around, sis? Like, are you in that much of a degenerate community as a black woman to where every single person you come across is just a loser and a bum and like a thug? Because I know that a lot of the exoticals over here, a lot of you guys have talked about being around black guys, for example, that are doctors or engineers. I mean, I went to an HBCU too, but I've been around like black guys where they'll start a business. Maybe they'll own like some sort of I don't know, a dispensary or something, or they at least have a business that makes money. I mean, I actually don't think it's far fetched to be around a black guy that has a business that is worth over $1 million, because remember, there's a difference between making a certain amount of money on paper versus having that amount of money in the bank. There are black guys that I've been around, and by the way, like I said, I will never promote you dating black guys. I am in no way telling you to go out and date black guys or to pursue black guys. I'm just trying to give some perspective here. I've personally been around black guys where maybe their family owns a soul food restaurant or something. The soul food restaurant makes $1 million a year, or he owns a something basic, like he owns a hat company or a t-shirt company or a sock company, or I don't know, he does like car detailing or something, and the business itself makes maybe 500K a year or something, and then after all the taxes and everything and after paying the staff, then he makes 100 something K. So I just kind of feel like Tasha K, even though people are saying she's a mammy, which she probably is, I don't know, but I feel like she was making the point that this guy is just average in terms of ambition level. And I also feel like, first of all, him not giving a fuck about her struggling financially while she's pregnant, that already tells you everything you need to know. Him already having been a deadbeat father, that also tells you everything you need to know. And for those of you who are going to come into the comment section and be like, oh, well, Rose, the whole thing was a publicity stunt. It wasn't. She admitted on the Tasha K thing that the argument was real. And so that means that what she was saying was true. And I believe it as well, because I saw the clip that a lot of you guys sent me with her arguing with the guy and her talking about how he was abusive and how he lived in a basement. Oh, I believe it. Because, like I said, statistically, most men are not protectors, providers, financially stable, emotionally stable, faithful, loyal, in shape, healthy, knows how to treat a lady. He's a gentleman. He has a good relationship with both parents. Do you see how unrealistic that sounds? It sounds like I'm describing a man from a romance novel. And so to expect me to believe that some random TikTok influencer suddenly has this aspirational relationship is laughable. And so this is why I will forever laugh at a lot of swirlers, pro swirlers, and divestors, and anybody male centered. I laugh at anybody male centered, to be honest, because I already know the problems that she's dealing with. And by the way, let's talk about the argument that she was having with her husband, how she was shouting at him and all that. And I saw the pink pill, and I saw like a lot of black women kind of coming down on Rose, saying, oh, well, she's disrespectful. And I agree, she's disrespectful, but I also feel like that's very interesting how unambiguous Black women are kind of punching at Rose, and none of them are holding this white man accountable. None of them are calling out this white man's flaws. So they're excusing his flaws and literally calling out their fellow unambiguous Black woman. That's incredible to me. It's incredible to see unambiguous Black women turning so easily on other unambiguous Black women before they would hold a white man accountable. That's incredible. Like I saw Pink Pill's first of all, Pink Pill hasn't been on YouTube in God knows how long, but I saw Pink Pill's live stream where she basically made this big long live stream kind of saying, I told you so to Rose, because she seemed upset that Rose would not do an interview with her and that she went on Tasha K's platform. And I find it incredible that Pink Pill, she said nothing about like this guy not wanting to provide for Rose. Like, I just find it incredible. She didn't even warn her own subscribers and say, hey, unambiguous Black women who are watching this, make sure that whatever guy you're choosing, make sure that he's actually somebody of substance and someone that has integrity and someone that's like a good person. Nope. She had all the smoke for Rose, no smoke for her husband. And don't get me wrong, I've got smoke for Rose as well, but I just feel like even with those two qualities right there, him not giving a fuck about becoming an actual pilot and not following through with his career goals. First of all, everybody should know this. Why did nobody call out Rose and tell her, hey, Rose, you know you're not supposed to be like a Barbara the Builder, right? Rose admitted that she was basically a Barbara the Builder. She admitted that she got with him. He did not have his pilot shit yet. So he could have became a pilot. So he was a coulda, shoulda, woulda type of man. So he could have became a pilot if he would have done the pilot's test, and he should have gone and taken the written test, but he didn't. He's a coulda, shoulda, woulda, bottom shelf Brad Dusty, basically, according to unambiguous women who talk that way about Black men. So it's like, okay, you have so much smoke for exoticals. You guys love telling exoticals, you got the same Black man, blah, blah, blah. It's like, at least these women got a guy who actually had the rap career. At least he actually made the album. God damn. This guy didn't even have the pilot's license. And so, yeah, I can see why she would be frustrated, but also she basically chose a Dusty in a white body. She basically chose a Dusty with white skin. And so I get that. But at the same time, though, I do think it was messed up how unambiguous Black women on YouTube, a lot of them were not very like understanding towards Rose. I don't like how a lot of them were just like, Rose, you disrespected him, or like, you shouldn't have put that on social media. Really? Are you kidding me? So you care more about the fact that she roasted him on social media versus the fact that her children are going to suffer and that she's potentially going to face Black femicide? Chrissy, remember how you tried to say that I laughed at Black femicide? So I find it interesting that you, also Pink Pill as well, you guys did not care about the fact that Rose, an unambiguous Black woman, could have potentially been being abused. You guys didn't care about that. You guys only cared about the part where she was disrespecting him on social media. I felt like you guys both swept his dusty behaviors under the rug and basically ignored the fact that he had no empathy for the fact that she was pregnant and not being provided for 4 months. I mean, first of all, most married people, if they're going to have a baby, usually that's something they talk about and plan. It takes two people for a marriage to work, okay? So if they're going to have a baby, normally, even if a guy is planning to not work for 4 months, usually he would have some sort of savings or something like, going for himself financially, especially if they're going to have a baby. So I find it interesting that Pink Pill and Chrissy, they didn't care about that. They didn't care about the fact that like this Black woman was literally sitting there suffering while pregnant, stressed out about money while she's pregnant. They didn't care about that. They were just like, oh, Rose, well, you shouldn't have disrespected him. Or basically, oh, it was okay. It was still better than being with a Black man. Yeah, it might have been better than being with a Black man, but it's still not a high quality life. I thought that the whole point was unambiguous Black women are supposed to be living this soft life. So where is this soft life that a lot of you guys are talking about over in the hypergamy spaces that these women are living? Because Serena Williams is in a hypogamous marriage. Rose is in a hypogamous marriage. I mean, where are the divestors? Because I want to have a chat about this. So now I want to talk about Rose. So I saw the clip where she was yelling and shouting and saying that he didn't pay for anything. And, people were coming down on her saying, well, you shouldn't have disrespected him. And I agree. And I will say that Rose's flaw is that she has absolutely no boundaries. She ignored all of the red flags about this white man. So I actually understand why Tasha K was kind of bringing this out during the interview, because she really does have no boundaries. So for example, I've been married before. I am a divorced woman. Okay. So you can make fun of me. That's fine. I don't care. I'm not male centered enough to think that it's a flex to be married or whatever, or to think that having been married is a flex. So I've been married and divorced. Did you know that I divorced my ex husband for less than that? I've never been in an argument with my ex-husband that was as bad as what I saw with Rose. I've never been so emotionally dysregulated, because I would never even let a man get me that riled up. I would never even continue a relationship with a man who gets me that emotionally dysregulated. And I saw that Rose tried to make the excuse that, oh, it was my mom that emotionally dysregulated me. Well, that means you're mentally ill then. If you are so emotionally dysregulated to where you take out the bad relationship with your mom, you take out your mommy issues on your husband. But it wasn't the mommy issues though. And I know that it wasn't, because in the recording where she was arguing with this guy, she was talking about Brett. She was saying, you didn't pay for anything, or I paid for the house, I paid for the Range Rover, I paid for all this stuff. So that's how I know it wasn't about the mom. I think that, yeah, the mom could have been one of your triggers, but like we all know that Brett is a walking trigger. And he is. And I mean, I can see why he would trigger you. So Rose shouldn't have even been with him. It shouldn't have even got to the point of marriage. She should have valued herself more to where this guy can't even touch her. He can't even sniff her. He can't even, she shouldn't have even got to the point of getting in a marriage with a guy that emotionally dysregulates her that much. And I also noticed that Rose was saying how she's very entrepreneurial and how this guy is more of a 9 to 5 guy. Well, he's really not even a 9 to 5 guy. He's more of a contract worker. And I'm saying this because she said, oh, he was working this job in Arizona, or he had to finish up this contract for 2 weeks. Okay, so he's a temp job worker, boo. And you're more of a boss babe. You're more of like a boss bitch type. So you need a guy who's more of a boss man. And so that's telling me one of her flaws as well. Instead of her actually like vetting, it almost seems as if she was kind of just comparing him to the 3 dusty black guys she had been with in the past, instead of comparing him to the 7 billion men on this earth and saying, does he meet my standard? Or at least comparing him to her own internalized standards, saying, hey, can he match my energy? Which he obviously can't. So she didn't make herself a priority. She was just thinking, oh, okay, well, he's not as dusty as the other guy, so he's good enough. And he's white and he's 6'5", so like I'm good. And this is my theory. My theory is that a lot of swirler marriages with unambiguous black women, and a lot of marriages in general, most of them are 50-50. Well, it's not a theory. That's really statistically true. I mean, it's impossible for every single married man to be rich. That is statistically impossible, because there are more poor people and middle class people in America than rich people. So you're telling me 80% of men make less than 100K, but I'm supposed to believe that this TikToker's husband is randomly just the bee's knees. He just makes all this money. He's a protector and provider and whatever. No, absolutely not. So this is why I no longer believe it. I don't care who it is. And I tell you guys all the time, this is why you should go on a decentering men journey. And also, if you don't see his money, he doesn't have it. That's kind of my rule. If I don't see the money, if I don't see that you have assets, you can tell me whatever you want to tell me, but I'm just personally not going to believe it unless I see it. So if he says, oh, I'm well off, or, I make 6 figures, or I have this, I have that, just because someone makes 6 figures, that doesn't mean that his bank account has 6 figures. It doesn't mean that he has 6 figures in assets. A lot of guys are not financially literate. And like I said, especially if he has children, he's paying child support. Okay. So up to 25% of his income is going towards those children. Not to mention the fact that Rose is playing stepmommy. So she is contributing to raising another woman's children. So that's another dynamic that I would never say yes to. This is why I said that Rose, her issue with this white man is her lack of boundaries. She's in a toxic relationship. By the way, I think that both of them are toxic, kind of like Keke Palmer and Darius. I think that both of them are toxic. I know that people only say that Darius is the toxic one. I think it's both, because in order to be in a toxic relationship, it takes 2 people. Like it takes one person that's toxic, and then it also takes the other person who keeps letting that guy break her boundaries. That's still toxic. So the fact that Rose is staying with a guy that emotionally dysregulates her that much, that says a lot. And so it really gives you an insight into the hidden dynamics of a lot of marriages in general. This is not just for interracial marriages. I've got smoke for everybody. that's married and tries to tout their marriage as a flex, because I'm very big proponent of not doing that, especially as a woman who has been married before. I understand marriage culture because I've been a part of it. And I feel like one of the toxic sides of marriage culture is this culture of the wives kind of trying to keep up this image. I know what that's like because I've experienced that myself. I've been a part of that myself. My parents are married. I come from a Christian background, so a lot of the people I've been around are married still. And I know what it's like to be surrounded by other married women who are like, oh no, you just basically get over it. You're married now. And also, let's talk about marriage vows in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer. So that's another thing a lot of women forget about. A lot of the hypergamous women. What about that part of the marriage vows? You do know that a lot of the women you're looking up to, they've been with that guy when he was poor at some point, or he's going to eventually become more poor than her if she's an entrepreneur. So, for example, if you have a YouTube channel or something, if you have your own business and your man works a 9 to 5, statistically, if your business is already profitable, you are more likely to become wealthy than him because a business can 10x itself. You know what I mean? Like you can 10x a business. You can't really 10x when it comes to your raise at a job. Usually at a job, they give you a 5% raise or something like that. You kind of have to climb the corporate ladder. So if a woman is a TikToker, especially in Rose's case, she does TikTok to where it's like she's got over 1 million subscribers, I guess. Your TikTok and your brand deals and all that, you've got a lot more financial growth potential than your husband. And so, hello, what happened to this whole rule about don't date a man's potential, don't marry a man's potential? Okay, well, that's exactly what Rose did. Why is nobody calling that out? Why are none of the unambiguous Black content creators calling that part out about Rose? They love telling exoticals, oh, you should have chose better. You got the same Black man. They love telling us that, but they didn't say that to Rose. Hey, Rose, you're a TikTok entrepreneur. And I know this because Rose was saying in the interview with Tasha K that during her pregnancy, they were struggling basically. And she couldn't like work as much. She was trying to find ways to make like side income and stuff, and he wasn't doing that. Okay, so that tells me that her work ethic is different than his, especially if he has everything he needs to do to get his pilot credentials and he still doesn't, and he sits on his ass for 4 months while she's pregnant and trying to figure out how to make money. And I actually did notice when Tasha K asked Rose, how did they move to Hawaii? Rose was the one who kind of came up with that idea, like we're moving to Hawaii. And then if you couple that with the fact that Rose said, when I bought my house, okay, so Rose, you decided to move to Hawaii and then you said it's your house. So that tells me that it's a hypogamous type of marriage then. You are the breadwinner and the protector and the provider, as I said. So that goes along with my decentering men talking point about how most of the women in marriages, whether it's interracial or not, the women in general tend to be the protectors and providers. The women tend to be the creative ones. The women tend to be the administrative ones. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, the white guy is the star of the show in terms of TikTok. Like he's the reason the Black women are following. Of course he is. Because a lot of unambiguous Black women, they pedestalize white men and then they discount other unambiguous Black women. So of course that's true. But Rose could have potentially been the one like coming up with the ideas for the content or, like making thumbnails and all that, making these different memes or these different visuals or kind of setting up the brand deals, sending out the pitch emails or something like if she's pitching to brands or getting them signed with social media agencies, getting the contracts signed. So even if he's the face of the brand, she could have been the producer. And it sounds like that's what it was because that's why she was complaining. And she even admitted it on the Tasha K interview. And then I've noticed this rhetoric where whenever an unambiguous Black woman's swirling relationship fails, other unambiguous Black women, they will kind of like sweep the white man's flaws under the rug. And it's like, no, keep the same energy. If you want to tell exoticals to choose better, you need to tell Rose to choose better. If you want to give us red pill talking points, should have chose better, got the same Black man. Where's that rhetoric with Rose? Why is it suddenly, oh, Rose, well, you shouldn't have disrespected him on TikTok. Are you kidding me? So you're telling me it's okay for him to disrespect her while she's pregnant and not provide for her and basically be a deadbeat father? So you're ignoring all of the bad red flag qualities about this white man. You're not holding him accountable for anything, but instead you just want to say, oh, well, just don't put your relationship on the internet. So you're telling me that she should have suffered in silence while she was pregnant and he was not working for 4 months. And while he did not get his pilot's license, she should have suffered in silence and just not put it on the internet and just pretended like everything was okay in order to uphold an image, a false image of a positive relationship. I can absolutely see why a lot of unambiguous women go through cycles of abuse. If you got women like Pink Pill, yeah, Pink Pill, I'm sorry. I mean, I had a lot of respect for you, but I just feel like hopefully you make another live stream, because the live stream that I saw that you had a lot of smoke for Rose, but you did not call out the white guy who also was disrespectful towards her. And yes, I agree that Rose is probably mentally ill. I mean, she is mentally ill. If you got a toxic relationship like that with your mother, and then like you're going on live and trying to humiliate your husband, you are mentally ill. So I agree that she's mentally ill, but to only say that she is basically the one in the wrong and to not call out any of the wrongs of this white man, that's insane to me. You're literally setting up unambiguous black women and also their mixed race children to potentially be abused. Because guess what? If he was already a deadbeat father to the first mother of his children, what do you think he's going to be potentially to Rose and those other children? He's potentially going to be a deadbeat father towards them. And also, I saw people commenting and they're like, Rose Miller is not a spokesperson for the black community. Nobody said she's a spokesperson for the black community. We have the right to have freedom of speech and come on YouTube and give our commentary, just like how you guys give commentary on exoticals when they have these effed up relationships with black men. And so I just feel like when it comes to my opinion on this, yes, you should hold black men accountable. You should hold white men accountable. Just decenter all of them to the exoticals. Okay. So I would say that where Rose went wrong is, first of all, putting whiteness on a pedestal or putting white men on a pedestal. But I would say she was really putting men on a pedestal in general, because remember, Rose didn't say that she was a divestor or like she preferred white men above black men. She actually said that the reason she chose the white man was because she had a bad experience. Basically, she got treated like shit by the three black men in a row before him. But I also feel like, again, if you're one of those women who, let's say you're male centered, okay? If you want to be male centered, I don't care. This is probably not the channel for you, but it's like if you're male centered or if you want to have male validation, at least don't just make your decision off of three bad experiences. Because at least us exoticals, a lot of women over here who have been chased by a lot of men, we have more of a pool of men to kind of like tell you. This is why for me, I don't care about giving smoke to Rose's husband, the white man, because I've dated multiple white men in the past. So I don't put them on a pedestal. I don't exotify white men or like see them as like these mythical creatures. Sometimes I feel like a lot of unambiguous black women who haven't been around a lot of white men view white men as these mythical creatures or something, as if they're somehow going to be different or like they're somehow going to have all these better qualities. And I do think that there are pros and cons to each culture. So, for example, yeah, like I would say the pro of white culture as a collective might be that they maybe have built more stuff in society or whatever. But guess what? Your husband ain't Jeff Bezos. Rose. And you know that. You should be able to look at his stuff that he's done with his life and see if there are any results. So if he was going to get a pilot's license and he did not get his pilot's license, or if you see that he lacks follow through, I would eliminate the guy right there. He has no follow through. That's a horrible quality to have in a husband and a father. A husband and father who doesn't keep his promises, he has bad follow through. That's a horrendous quality. He'll never be rich if he's not good at setting a goal and achieving it. So that's another thing. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not a black male or white male thing. That's literally a male thing. That's literally called being able to follow your intuition. But in Rose's defense, though, if you've got unambiguous black women telling you, oh, well, you just disrespected him. You shouldn't have disrespected him. And that's just a part of marriage. Well, that's kind of teaching her to drop her boundaries for the sake of a marriage, which she shouldn't do, because then she's going to suffer emotionally and her children are going to suffer. So she's literally going to keep going through the same cycles, whether the man is black or white. Also, if you look at that interview with Tasha K, basically, she met this guy. He was sleeping on a mattress. She moved him into her apartment and she came up with the ideas on how to make money. He borrowed her car until she eventually sold it to him. And then he turns around and he doesn't appreciate her. This sounds like typical male behavior. This is not a black male, white male thing. These are all reasons that you should decenter men, basically. Like I said, women are the natural protectors and providers usually. because women are the ones who, you're pregnant, you feel that baby inside of you, like you feel that that baby's coming, every single day as your hormones are changing and stuff, that that baby is coming. So a lot of the women are really the ones who are the planners and stuff, and the organizers and the administrators. A lot of times in these marriages, the women are the resilient ones. The women are the creative ones, kind of tapping into that feminine energy, the creativity. So it's like she was the one coming up with the ideas on how to make money. She was kind of the practical one in the relationship. And then he's not being supportive, and he's not as emotionally intelligent as her. He's not as emotionally available. And once again, that lines up with my decentering men talking points about how a lot of men, they're not emotionally intuitive like how women are. So they don't pick up on certain things. So yeah, this is just, it's not a black man, white man conversation. It's not a divestor conversation. This is a decentering men conversation. And I also noticed that she said that we were fake separating because of another woman. Okay, that implies cheating. That implies some sort of cheating, or, like if a woman can come between your relationship with your husband, once again, that's yet another reason why you should decenter men. And I talk about this a lot. Also, even if you look at websites like marriage.com, it talks about how it's typical for a man to look at other women. It's typical for a man to even look at other married women, or to flirt with other women, or to look at women at work, or look at porn. The majority of men statistically can't even go more than 30 days without looking at pornography. So, knowing all of those statistics, this is yet another reason why I feel like relationships and marriage and stuff should not be put on a pedestal, because no matter how pretty you are, no matter how smart you are, no matter how sexy you are, no matter how fit, feminine, and friendly you are, he's still going to be looking at other women. He still might be talking to other women, or flirting with them, or, texting them, or DMing them and shit. And so that's just another layer of drama that married women don't talk about. And so I really don't like that there is this culture where it's normalized for men to look at other women's pictures, or I don't know, just kind of interact with other women. You guys know my belief on this, that a lot of men and women's friendships are not real friendships and stuff. So even if it is online, especially if you're promoting him and you're saying, oh, he's 6'5", he has a big D, and he has all these muscles and whatever. If you're promoting him and building him up, if you're pulling a Simone Biles and you're spending all your time promoting his image, or saving his image, or trying to make him look like as much of a Prince Charming as possible, not only is that making you look like a Barbara the Builder, but also you're promoting him for other women as well. And most men are so starved for validation. And especially a man like Rose's husband, who's very vapid on the inside and was a deadbeat father and stuff. A lot of those types of guys, they're so starved for validation that if another woman approaches him, or if he's getting attention from other women or something like that, he's going to soak that shit up. And I'm not even saying that that's what he did, but I mean, that's just another dynamic. So I definitely think that Rose has an inferiority complex. I definitely think that Pink Pill, when she did her recent like live stream thing, she kind of focused more so on Rose's flaws, which I thought was insane. Kind of similar, actually, as what Kane said, that Rose wouldn't be able to reach the heights that she could reach on TikTok if it weren't for that white man. So it's funny how if Pink Pill says it, no big deal, right? You wouldn't be able to get to where you are on TikTok without that white man, without your husband. But then if Kane says, hey, you can't get to where I am on TikTok because you're an unambiguous black woman, then it's colorist. So do you see the hypocrisy? And for those of you saying, oh, well, the whole thing was a publicity stunt, like the whole argument was fake, it was just a skit. That's not fake, and that's not a skit. And even if it is, why would you want to practice verbally abusing your spouse? That doesn't sound like a fun skit. That doesn't sound mentally healthy. That doesn't sound healthy for a relationship. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.